Today we're going to talk about a place called Ancient Kush. It is section 4.5. And before we get into the notes, I wanted to show you where Kush was. So here we have ancient Egypt that we've been talking about, the Nile River. And then further south, down in this area where you see in green, this was the kingdom of Kush. This was Kush. And you can see that's along the Nile River as well. And it's along those cataracts that we talked about, the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth cataract. Remember, those cataracts are small waterfalls in the river that make it very difficult to navigate by boat. And this is just a visual summary. So in these two areas, you had ancient Egypt and Kush. So Egypt, which we know a lot about already, Egyptian civilization developed along the Nile River. There, powerful pharaohs ruled a diverse society whose achievements included building impressive pyramids and developing a writing system. And you know that already. Kush develops farther south along the Nile, which I just showed you on the map, and they ruled by their own kings and queens. The Kushites had extensive interaction with the Egyptians and blended Egyptian influences into their own advanced culture. So they used some of the Egyptian culture in their own. They kind of blended it in, mixed it in with some of their own ideas. Let's take a look at the notes now. So the big idea is that the kingdom of Kush, which arose south of Egypt in a land called Nubia, developed an advanced civilization with a large trading network. So they had a huge trading network. Main ideas: the geography of early Nubia helped civilization develop there. Kush and Egypt traded, but they also fought. Later, Kush became a trading power with a unique culture, and both internal and external factors led to the decline of Kush. So those are some of the main ideas. So main idea one, the geography of early Nubia helped civilization develop there. A group of people called the Kushites settled in a region now called Nubia and established the first large kingdom in the interior of Africa. The development of the Kushite civilization was greatly influenced by the geography of Nubia, especially the role played by the Nile River. Again, the Nile River helped them just as it helped the Egyptians that we've been talking about. This is just a picture. The ruins of ancient Kushite pyramids stand behind those reconstructed to look the way they did when originally built. So these are the old ones, okay, and you can see they're falling apart, and obviously over time they've deteriorated. Here you have pyramids that they reconstructed to look like what the pyramids would have looked like a long time ago, thousands of years ago. So Nubia, ancient Nubia was fertile due to annual flooding. Again, the flooding of the Nile River helped them as well as the Egyptians. It left that, silt, that fine soil on the land for them to farm. Nubia was rich in valuable minerals that contributed to its wealth. So things like gold, copper, and stone were things that they had available to them as resources. Farmers thrived there, and one became the king of a region he called Kush. The capital city of Kerma was protected from invaders by the cataracts of the Nile River. And those are those red little dashes I just showed you on the map. And they were like, the cataracts were like small rapids or little waterfalls that made it difficult to travel the Nile in that area. So it protected them as well. Here's a map I showed you at the very beginning. Okay, again, the green is Kush, and you can see these little dashes are the cataracts. And if I zoom in here, I can't zoom in, but you can see one of the cataracts right here, rapids right here. There's a difference in elevation there, and that would, if someone tried to go over that with a boat, they would, the boat would get destroyed. So this photo shows one of the Nile cataracts or rapids. In ancient times, most riverboats could not sail past these shallow rapids. Main idea two, Kush and Egypt traded, but they also fought. Obviously, being so close together, they probably had conflicts at times. So Egypt and Kush traded with each other. However, relations between Kush and Egypt became hostile. Egypt feared that Kush would become too powerful, so it invaded and conquered Kush. So they just assumed that eventually Kush would become very powerful, and in order to protect themselves, they just decided to invade and conquer Kush themselves before they tried to do it to them. Kush was an Egyptian territory for about 450 years. Many Kushites adopted Egyptian religious practices, names, and language. And during a time of decline in Egypt, Kushite leaders regained control of Kush, becoming independent again. So they were separate. Egypt attacked or invaded Kush. Kush became an Egyptian territory for about 450 years. And then during a time of decline in Egypt, the Kushite leaders regained control and they became independent again. Kush regains power. Kush regained its strength and conquered Egypt under the direction of Kashta and his son Pianki. By 751 BC, the Kushite king Kashta had conquered Upper Egypt. Pianki ruled all of Egypt by the time of his death, around 716 BC. Shabaka, the brother of Pianki, declared himself pharaoh and began the Kushite dynasty. This dynasty tried to restore the old Egyptian cultural practices. Remember, a dynasty is when the leadership or the power stays in one family. So that would be the Kushite dynasty. And then when power switched to a different family, then that would start a different dynasty. The Kushite dynasty remained strong until the Assyrians drove them out of Egypt in the 670s BC. And here's a biography on Pianki, also known as Pi. Pianki was among Kush's most successful military leaders. A fierce warrior on the battlefield, the king was also deeply religious. Pianki's belief that he had the support of the gods fueled his passion for war against Egypt. His courage inspired his troops on the battlefield. Pianki loved his horses and was buried with 8 of his best steeds. Main idea 3. Later, Kush became a trading power with a unique culture. Kush devoted itself to increasing agriculture and trade. Remember, agriculture is farming. Within a few centuries, it became a rich and powerful kingdom again. Meroe, the kingdom's new capital, developed an iron industry. Resources such as iron ore and wood for furnaces helped the industry grow quickly. Meroe became the center of a large trade network, a system of people in different lands who trade goods. Okay, so that's what a trade network is, a system of people in different lands who trade goods. Here you see Kush's trade network. Ancient Kush was at the center of a large trading network with connections to Europe, because remember, Europe is above the north of the Mediterranean Sea here, Africa, which they're in, and Asia, which was just across the Red Sea. Kush's location and production of iron goods helped make it a rich trading center. So goods from the Mediterranean came to Kush through trade with Egypt. Caravans from the south brought goods like leopard skins and ostrich eggs to Kush. So this came from the south. In Meroe, workers made iron tools and weapons, jewelry, pottery, and other goods. Okay, and here's Meroe right along the Nile. And at ports on the Red Sea, merchants traded Kush's goods for luxury items like silk and glass. So here were ports over here on the Red Sea. So you can see that their location allowed them to have this great trade network. Kushite culture. Kushite culture was influenced by Egypt. They worshipped Egyptian gods, built pyramids, wore Egyptian clothing, and had rulers called pharaohs. The Kushites also had their own gods. They developed their own written language called Meroitic. And the women of Kush were expected to be as active in society as the men. Some rose to positions of authority and power, especially religious authority.